with the U.S. Attorney's Office yesterday. He met with them yesterday based on the jury questions. Now, this is why they're having the jury ask questions. They can then tailor their approach. So then, after they talked to this witness yesterday, he comes in and starts saying things like, I am here to protect, I took an oath to protect the Constitution. He brought up First Amendment. Did he say First? There's a little confusion whether he said First Amendment or Second Amendment in the courtroom. They are trying to tailor their prosecution to these jury questions. That's what we knew they were doing with the jury questions all along. They're trying to push this through, and we're hoping that the jury will see through it. Absolutely.
Another thing, all the witnesses say they don't know what time it was.
Yes, that's the other thing, is they've all been... All right, we're back. Well, hopefully this will work. Okay, so first, government calls Ranger Edwin Whitaker. He is with the BLM. He was previously a U.S. Border Patrol and ATF. What I am finding out here is the federal government has created their own standing army. They have created these people who are used to dealing with non-American citizens on the border. They're heavy-handed. They are either Secret Service, Border Patrol, ATF. This is not what you think of when you think BLM. Me living in rural Idaho, when I think BLM, I think someone who's going to come out and make sure that I've got the right amount of birds for my duck hunting, make sure I'm using the correct shot. I do not think of a Border Patrol agent ready to take my life. That is what the BLM is nowadays. That is what the Park Service is. And it seems that it is going at an alarming rate.
It would seem to me the Park Service has gotten very unfriendly lately. And particularly if you happen to be Cleveland Bundy and you just want to grow cattle so that people in California can have steaks, taking my hat off for you people. Incredible what the Obama administration has done. Another clip, and that was Andrea Olson Parker, wife of Eric Parker, who just confirmed to me today that her husband will be put on trial again for the third time. Two juries couldn't convict her, so they're fishing. What they're doing, they're fishing to get a jury pool in that crooked sin city called Las Vegas that will convict him for growing cattle, growing melons, raising children out in the desert, where his and his wife's family have done it for 100 years. In fact, they had lodged their right to graze cattle there before Las Vegas even had one resident. And now the BLM, out of an office in Las Vegas, sends out 200 SWAT team thugs, I would call them, because they weren't acting with regard to the law. They were acting under color of law, because one of these crooked, filthy judges like that Gloria Navarro, sitting on the federal bench of the Ninth Circuit, as good a prostitute as any you will find in the Ninth Circuit federal court system, Gloria Navarro, on orders, it's like this. Harry Reid says, I need to get rid of the Bundy ranchers. They got rid of 52 with federal regulations and harassment, but the Bundys won't cave in. Gloria, if I recommend to Obama that you be given a federal judgeship, will you promise me you will put them away when I get them on trial, and you will send out the troops and we'll get them? Will you do that, Gloria? Gloria says, oh, sure, Harry. I just love to do that for you, Harry. Who's Harry? Harry Reid is a senior U.S. Senator whose son, Rory Reid, just might have been governor of Nevada. Ding, 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 ding. And just might have been working with the EN Corporation, which is a communist-controlled energy company out of communist China. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, bells and whistles should be going off in your head right now. So there's Gloria. And so Harry says, don't worry, honey. We'll get you that appointment. You just put away the Bundys. And Gloria says, okay, Harry. So on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2009, Harry sends in the recommendation to the select committee and the president that Gloria Navarro is worthy of a federal judgeship because she's going to help me get rid of the Bundy ranchers. This is as crooked politics get. This rivals Tammany Hall crookedness and that crooked senator from Louisiana who had a special bill made just that only fit his family. It didn't apply to anybody but his family. I mean, these guys sit in the Senate too long. I think 2 terms in the Senate and you're done with public service. Never should be allowed in again. Can't be a lobbyist either. Getting back on our focus. So Obama and the Select Committee get this recommendation on Christmas Eve. Now, of course, I'm sure Obama on Christmas Eve and the Select Committee is just sitting there at their desk on Christmas Eve, 2009, waiting for glory. No, they're not. They're home celebrating, doing whatever corrupt politicians do, particularly Obama type. Although I have something good to say about Obama. So then May 10th, with virtually no scrutiny, after Congress comes back into session, in February, March, April? Virtually no review, no background real check on Gloria Navarro, and bingo, she's appointed by Barack Hussein Obama as a federal judge. Now I object to that because that appointment is invalid because Obama was an invalid president, because he was raised in Indonesia, came to America on a scholarship, ding, 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 ding. Even Sheriff Joe Arpaio in Arizona, he had a select committee come together and scrutinize that so-called birth certificate and found it to be a fraudulently constructed birth certificate. Obama was born in Kenya, where even the ambassador from Kenya told me, we are so proud of our native son, Obama, President of the United States, born in Kenya. Even most of you Americans don't care that the Bundys are being wrongfully put on trial, and the defenders, all of them, should be nominated. They should make a new Mount Rushmore just for the Bundy defenders. Eric Parker, Drexler, Loveline, Delamis, who's already serving time in prison. He was one of the few that was convicted in one of the 2 earlier trials. There sits Gloria like a prostitute. What does a prostitute do? Anything you want her to do for a certain amount of money. And the right amount of money for Gloria Navarro, the right amount, was a federal judgeship with all the pensions and all the privileges that entails. Now, I wouldn't say all judges in Nevada are crooked, but the one that put this guy, Erwin Schiff, in prison, that judge was crooked as hell. What did Erwin Schiff do? He wrote this book called The Federal Mafia, how it illegally imposes and unlawfully collects income taxes by Erwin Schiff. And Erwin Schiff died in a federal prison. His crime, this guy's crime, Erwin Schiff's crime, seen on the back cover here, Erwin Schiff's crime was writing this book. Can you believe that? His crime was writing a book. What happened to freedom of press? This is insanity on steroids, people. Yeah, so Erwin Schiff went to prison in his 80s, I think, and died blind, going deaf, handcuffed to a prison hospital bed for writing a book. And then you got to ask, is this still really we the people's America? Or is this some kind of criminal syndicate like the Federal Reserve, the Bar Association, that works for the bank gangsters? Is it their America? Because it certainly doesn't feel like it's our America. When people can have their homes stolen, their properties stolen, and the BLM can come out there and SWAT team and kill cattle, tear up water lines that took 100 years to put in place, back when nobody cared. These people, the Bundy Ranch, were grandfathered in. And somebody needs to put that in a lead pipe and shove it up the BLM officers and the judge that sent them out there, up their backside, so they get the message. That's a little graphic, isn't it? Well, killing Lavoy Finicum up in Oregon is graphic, and I don't see even the Trump administration doing anything to call the crooks left in place by Obama. That was done under Obama's administration, by the way. I don't see Trump calling for justice for Lavoy Finicum. I don't see him saying, hey, Jeff Sessions, you go up there, you get the facts, you have special investigators, you get the best investigators, and we prosecute the guy that murdered Lavoy Finicum in cold blood in the snow. All he was doing is traveling from point A to point B to lecture on how to form a grand jury, how to take back America. How to take back America. That was Lavoy Finicum's crime. That's it. He didn't point a gun at anybody. He didn't threaten to shoot anybody. He didn't steal anybody's property. He didn't invade and hostilely hold the Malheur Preserve up there in Oregon. And yet some federal thug or county thug killed him dead. And his children and his widow have not yet got justice. Where are you, Mr. Trump? Where are you, Mr. Trump, when Lavoy Finicum's body cries for justice from the grave? I'm not saying you aren't busy, but I think if people can be murdered by federal thugs and you've got an attorney general that's supposed to bring in law and order, then the law should apply, Mr. Trump, against federal criminals. Not just Hillary, who's a criminal, and her husband, Slick Willie, but it should apply to all criminals, including the BLM officers and the chain of command all the way up. What's coming up here is October 10th, next month, on the 10th. The Bundys are finally being put on trial for the first time, but they're going to drag in Mr. Drexler and Mr. Parker and include them with the Bundys and try to get them convicted a third time. This begins to look like malicious prosecution. The U.S. prosecutors need to be indicted and put in an underground prison where they never see the sunlight again. These are criminals. Khrushchev would have loved what's happening to America. It's being turned into a communist, corporate communist organ of the worst kind of people, the same kind of people that ran communist China, and that is the international bankers, Rothschild and Company. But yesterday, we opened the show with Andrea Olson Parker talking about a federal witness. My question is, do you think that same federal witness is going to be brought back to testify exactly the same way a third time? Second time? Or will they go to some other federal witness? Anyway, just yesterday, thanks to Mr. Loveleen, I think, this video, which is taken by the BLM thugs, just got released yesterday. To see the Clark County, Nevada, deputy coming up and asking him not to point their long guns. It's short.
You guys need to, these are big people here. We're going to have you back up and stuff, okay? Okay. We don't need all the long guns or anything. And when they show up, almost go back into the gun. Right up. Don't take orders from that officer. Okay. Are we going to let them go up in front of us? No. They're not? What? No. Nevada's going to take it. So. Okay, so Nevada, we're going to push back when Nevada gets here? Yeah. Okay. I don't want to see the rifles too far in front. You know what I mean? Right. All units, Alpha 1.
Get your long guns out of sight. Get your long guns out of sight. They have more than enough help.
On the northbound bridge, I've got two guys. So there's two pillars, the left and the right pillar on the far bridge. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The northbound bridge.
Yep.
There's two pillars. The right pillar, right above it. There's just their head sticking above it.
Yep.
I don't know why. They'll stand up. They're on their knees, just their heads above it.
Copy that. I see him.
They both got long rifles.
I'll take those two heads. Hotel 4. Hotel 4.
Okay.
It's pretty hard to de-escalate when you got guys with helmets and M16s.
I understand.
aimed at us.
Give me aiming.
Rebellion.
I know that's why I need
You know that?
aiming.
I mean, this is all
Sir,
over the world. You're
that's-
going to see this.
I know that's why we're going to de-escalate it right
You
now.
got to de-escalate. You got to get these guys with these guns pointed on you.
I've got them. They've got
Get them
guns
back
coming
off.
out. We're pushing them right now. I'll start
Get the
pushing
gun.
them.
Get the guns off of us.
Hey,
Get the guns off of us.
Guys, we're ready. Come here.
This is a worldwide story. This is going on television in China.
I know. No gun pointing. No guns.
Get the guns off. Get no guns on American
Give me
citizens.
aim and Bundy.
Now, people, what you see there is look at all these guns. These aren't your ordinary rifles. These can spray bullets. And there's your BLM thugs pointing while traffic. They're pointing at I-15, endangering people who are traveling up and down I-15 between St. George, Utah and North Las Vegas. Supposing a firefight had broken out and your sister, your daughter, your mother had been going up I-15 and they got hit by a BLM bullet, would you care then? Would it suddenly hit you? Something is very wrong when you can get shot dead by a Bureau of Land Management sharpshooter aiming at some cowboys on horses who are trying to save their cattle, and a stray bullet goes up and kills my daughter, my wife, my sister, my brother, my father or mother. Then you would care a lot. What I'm saying to you is you should start caring now. You should write the Bundys in Pahrump, Nevada, at their jail. Tell them you care. You should call President Trump at 202-456-1111 and leave a comment. Pardon all the Bundy defenders, the ones convicted, the one on trial, pardon all of them. Most of them weren't convicted, but a few were on a prior trial. This would send such a strong message, and Trump, you've been wanting to send a strong message to the Ninth Circuit. Giving a blanket full pardon to all the Bundys would send a really strong message that you got to straighten up your courts. Something's wrong with that head. Gloria Navarro, the federal judge appointed on the recommendation of that crook, Senator Harry Reid. Now, if I was in Las Vegas saying this would probably be a death sentence, but I'm not sitting in Las Vegas. I'm doing this show live in California in September. Next month, a trial starts for the Bundys. And you can be sure the corporate media will not report on it. Because if the Bundys go to prison, which I really don't think they will, no matter how they try to rig the jury, well, they're already in jail. But if they go convicted to prison, that means nobody's ranch, nobody's farmland, no property is safe anywhere in America. The government can just come and say, well, you did have grazing rights or you did have ownership, but the government's taking it now because we want it. And that's it. In cities across America, this power of eminent domain is what it's called, often goes amok. And then we're going to get into 9/11, and I swear, as I'm alive and breathing here, Lee Harvey Oswald had absolutely nothing to do with shooting Officer Tibbetts or John Fitzgerald Kennedy 53 some years ago. Didn't happen like they told you. You were lied to by Walter Cronkite and all the corporate media. They lied to you over and over. And come this November 22nd, they will lie to you again. And you will see all kinds of documentaries about, gee, only one single fact blares out. Blares out. And that is, he was tested. As soon as arrested, Oswald was tested, given the paraffin test. That proved he hadn't shot a gun in weeks at anybody. At anybody, and certainly not that day. Therefore, he couldn't have been any kind of a shooter. That's a different issue. I want you to see this other clip. Ready? Let's roll it.
Of physical problems with you guys, because we want to avoid that at all costs.
I'll tell you the best way to avoid that is to start adhering to the Constitution, recognize that there are rights here that you are violating, and simply do not show up. And all of that will be put to a stop that simply.
Okay.
That's the easy way to handle that.
Well, I have to be honest, and I have to inform you that that's not an option.
You guys have any reason to be out here?
Same as you.
Just hanging out?
Yep.
Okay. You all know that this is all part of a closure? If you feel like you want to express your First Amendment rights, we have a First Amendment area that's set up for you guys. If you want to go to your First Amendment area, then you're fine by going to the First Amendment area, okay?
For sure.
Well, do you know we have a First Amendment right area? Have you guys been out there to it? Okay. Well, that's our First Amendment area, okay? I understand that you guys have strong opinions about what the BLM and Park Service are doing out here, but this is not the place to do it.
Take me to jail? You might shoot me, but you really don't have the authority to do that either.
I think that the only way you're going to get through some of these people is just put the silver bracelets on them and take them, and then maybe they'll think twice about it.
Attorney's office just put out no arrest authority.
No arrest authority? So, okay.
They don't want us to push it.
So even if you scratch them a ticket, they're still going to sit here?
No arrest authority is
No
what
arrest.
this?
They said cite them. If they refuse to give information, we'll figure out who they are. No arrest.
Good info.
Could you please leave?
I will. I am going to leave.
Okay, now.
But I can't leave without you.
Okay, he's a grown man.
He is.
Okay,
My brother.
he's being dealt with. Okay? Sir, this is the last time I'm going to ask you. So your first choice is to leave. Okay? It's your first choice, sir, to leave. To leave. Okay? Sir? Sir, leave now. Leave now. Leave now. Leave now, sir. Leave. We're not playing this game all day. Leave. Okay? Now. I'm gonna drag you out of the car, okay? Here in a second. Leave now. Leave now. You have your children in the car. Don't act like this, okay, sir? You have your children in the car. Just go, Dad. Go, okay? Sir, don't do this in front of your kids, okay? Leave now, please. Okay?
Take the baby down. I am leaving. I'm in the process of leaving.
Go to the speed limit, okay? Go to the speed limit.
Dr. Cliven Bundy is on the show. Welcome to the Pete Santilli Show. Federal government has set up corral areas designated First Amendment speech areas. Is that correct? They said that you can only exercise your constitutional God-given rights in a certain small parcel. Is that correct?
Yes, that's hard for me to even believe or understand here in America. Picture this in your mind. You have a guy standing leaning against the front of his car along the highway in the desert, and then he's approached by all of these cars and all these men. They wrestle him down, abuse him, grind his face into the grass box, handcuff him, and then they transferred him to Henderson, Nevada, and put him in the city jail there overnight. And then they picked him up that next day and took him to the federal prison. And he said then all of a sudden their attitude changed. They was very nice. They took off the shackles. They went and got him a sack lunch, and they turned him out on the streets of Las Vegas.
You better get your
Violence from a protest over cattle in Overton. It got to the point where one protester was even tasered. But this was only half of the fireworks with this situation. This is a story that's continuing to gain national attention.
There was one guy that got a little bit out of hand.
Which guy?
And he took down Margaret. Her name is Margaret.
The one that jumped almost and got hit by a vehicle?
56 years old.
The one that almost got, that he hooks with his arm to pull out of the way of a convoy?
What?
He probably saved her life.
Margaret.
And you know that officer? He doesn't push her in the front, does he? You've seen the video. What does he do? He hooks
Slammed her to the ground.
he hooks her by the waist. Watch the video very closely. He hooks her with one, I think it's this arm, with one arm and pulls her behind him. Now, she obviously loses her balance and goes to the ground, but he's not taking her by the shirt and ramming her into the ground. You can watch the video. You've got the evidence. Look at it.
Have you guys already investigated it?
Yeah, I 100%, trust me.
You have.
I'm all over it. I've got all the little body recorders. They're all moving. We have our own perspective. Very clear video. Very clear officer statement.
That's what I want you to do. That's what I want you to do.
And I will
Just
continue to
investigate it. You look at it.
And I will
you got somebody that...
I will not allow my officers to exceed or violate the law. I'm looking at you, man to man.
Mm-hmm.
We uphold the United States Constitution. I will hold people accountable.
You're not.
We are.
Get back! Get back now!
There's a question as to why there's backhoes and the dump trucks, because there's a claim right now.
We're not killing cattle.
That's
We're not killing
is.
cattle.
We don't know that. That was the whole reason why.
I will tell you right now, we're not killing cattle.
Okay.
That is wrong.
Okay. That's you saying that.
No, and again, I'm the guy in charge.
Okay.
I do not lie. On behalf of the United States government, I do not lie.
There are no baby cattle left out there after you guys have been...
None.
None?
Not killing.
Okay.
They're doing every effort that if they separate a calf, they identify it.
What if I have proof to the contrary?
Well, again, to get every single baby cat that's dead.
Oh my goodness!
Is that what you're saying?
You guys are leaving them out there.
No, they're roping. If we gather in an area, the specific area we gather in, anyone that is separated is identified, and they go back and they collect it. Now, if there are baby calves in other areas, that very well could happen.
Well, that's what.
No matter how many people show up there, we want peace, tranquility, cooperation. You guys got to do your jobs. We have to do our jobs. Well. Absolutely. You want to know what the end game is? If you guys just say, okay, we got to pick up marbles and go. Whoever tells you guys to do that, ultimately, that's what the objective is. It's not going to be an armed insurrection. It's not going to be bullets or anything like that. The ultimate goal is either by legal authority or however it goes. Your command says, guys, that's it. We're pulling up stakes. We got to go. And that's it. And if it's the sheriff that makes that happen.
The fight for grazing rights at Bundy's Ranch is now drawing people from across the country, fueled by cell phone video of BLM officers using tasers and a real physical limitation on First Amendment rights.
I didn't decide to go down until I saw that they had erected the free speech zones, because everybody saw that video and they knew people were coming to protest. So they put up those free speech zones, and they told everybody that they could protest inside those zones. And they were like miles away from the ranch. And then when people weren't inside those zones, they started arresting people.
Rumors going on, and we saw some video and stuff like that made us upset about what was going on down there, like the First Amendment zones.
Right.
people getting mistreated, some dogs sick on. I saw an old lady get clotheslined, and that was infuriating. And immediately in me, I was like, I got to get down there.
Honest to goodness, there's nobody over there that said anything about violence. Okay. If there's been talk of guns and stuff like that,
Hey, that's Second Amendment right. Carry a gun. We don't care.
carry a gun legally, lawfully. Okay.
Some messaging we got back, and again, right to bear arms, we're fine with it. You know, our officers, public lands, you get to shoot on public lands. We deal
Legal.
with people.
I mean, if you have legal
Legal
possession,
is good.
concealed
Legal is
carry,
good.
absolutely.
And again, I don't have a problem with guns. You know, it's a Second Amendment.
I don't either.
So, you know,
But you know what? That's not what this is about. We're not here. This isn't an armed insurrection. This is a protest.
Good morning, citizens of Clark County, Nevada. Good morning, America.
Thank you, and I would like to introduce our sheriff. I do want to ask that you are respectful and allow him to speak. And he has been elected. He does hold the authority of the people, and we welcome him here. We are glad that he's here. We are grateful that he's here. We understand that because he's here, order is closer to being met. Peace is upon us. And I introduce you to Sheriff Glissman.
Good morning. Clyde, and my purpose out here this morning is to continue, from my standpoint, to keep a very emotional issue safe. I believe a press release has already been put forth that the BLM is going to cease this operation. The Gold Butte allotment will be reopened to the public, and they will be removing their assets here in Clark County. What I would hope to sit down with you and talk about is how that is facilitated in a safe way. And you and I have had the ability to sit down and talk before on a number of occasions. We may not always agreed, but we have been respectful to each other's opinion and to the process. So that's why I'm here, to start that with you. Number one, to advise you of that, but I was advised when I was coming here that that had already been released. I don't know if you and the people here were aware of that. But the next steps is something that I believe you and I should sit down and talk about. So I'll turn that back over to you, I guess.
Where are the cows? Where's the cattle?
Well, the cows are where they have been here for the last few days, and that's what needs to be discussed. I mean, you and I need to have a conversation about it.
Now we're going to go and take our land back and declare freedom and liberty here in this land. Is God going to be with us? Do we all feel good? Okay. One thing I'm going to do, Ivan Bundy's going to turn cattle out of his farm. They're going to go out on the open range where they belong. And we're going to go and take the rest of them out of the compound trails up here above the freeway. This should be the governor of Nevada's job, but he's actually inspected these cattle to go to California. So if they haven't went to California yet, let's go get those cattle, and all we got to do is open the gate and let them back down on the river, and they're home. Okay, we need a little bit of safety here. We're going to go up the freeway. We're going to block the freeway. When we get to the Tocop Bridge, we're going to get out of our cars, and we're going to go and open the channels. These horse people are going to pull up the Power Line Road, and they're going to meet us at the Tocop Bridge, underneath the Tocop Bridge. Get it going, cowboys. Let's go get it done.
How many lines do you have? You guys need to these are people here. We're going to have you back up stuff, okay? Okay, so we don't need all the long guns or anything. Hey, don't take orders from that officer. Hey guys, don't take orders from that officer.
333, let's get some of our people up in the front, and let's move the BLM folks back if we can.
Say again?
Let's get our folks up here to interact with these folks instead of these BLM.
Control BLM. BLM. Yes, ma'am. Just be advised. We understand that you guys are already en route to our ICP. Just want to confirm that is the case. That's affirmative. Ma'am, do you have an ETA? 109 Central. BLM CP is asking for an ETA for the units to the CP.
We actually moved the CP a little closer to the front, so.
Yeah. So further up north, there's a bridge, and the police have got a barricade. There's the horse. And the horse is going. There's a lone reporter down there at the camera. They're telling him to back off. And he doesn't look too happy about it. He's not backing down.
All that stuff they said over there is bullshit. Yeah, they're not going.
Yeah. Yeah, they claim we didn't see anything, but before we got here, they claimed that they pulled guns on the civilians.
Back over this country that thou hast had so many fight for and die for, that we will not forget them ever again in our lives, and we'll teach them to our children. Please help us as we go about this task, that we will be safe, and that we will invoke thy power to prevent us. Ask these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Don't leave the Nevada. They're violating the law. When they're violating state law.
Once you get on BLM, they have a court order. This ain't BLM. They were supposed to leave. That's what I'm saying. This ain't BLM. They were ordered by the sheriff.
These people don't want to get hurt. Are you really going to shoot these people if they move forward, yes or no? Sir, we can't hear your announcement that far away. We can't hear it. That's why I'm coming to you. They cannot hear what you're... They cannot hear what you're saying through the tunnel here. If you would just tell me, I'll relay the message.
Did you hear anything they said?
Yes. They said they'll stop. They'll shoot.
What?
Said what?
This is not BLM land! It is Nevada Department of Transportation land! Your court order does not apply! Go!
Sure enough, we get down into the ravine, and BLM is saying that they will open fire if we move any further. And these were housewives, you know, fathers. I mean, just normal everyday people that came out to show their support, and they were actually threatening to open fire on these people. So that was basically there. I had to just drop everything and run down and try to keep everybody calm, for one, because we obviously didn't want people going down there, you know, running amok. And we wanted to make sure that everything was legal and constitutional and everybody stayed within their bounds as Americans.
You're gonna have to arrest us all or shoot us all!
The crowd is now moving forward toward the barrier. The police have been telling everybody they are going to shoot if we don't move back.
While we took our shoes off for the interview, word had not yet reached the hundreds of protesters who were blocking traffic to Interstate 15. The battle was over.
There's protesters out there blocking the highway right now. Are they aware that the deal has been made?
I don't know. I don't think they know. The deals are just coming through to me just within the last few minutes.
People are moving forward with their hands in the air, holding flags with both hands in the air. It's a mixture of people on foot, as you can see, people on foot and cowboys.
Help me out.
It's pretty hard to de-escalate when you got guys with helmets and M16s.
I understand.
Aimed at us.
Give me aiming.
This is the beginning of a rebellion.
I know, that's why I need
You know
aiming.
that? I mean, this is all over the world. You're
That's-
going to see this.
I know, that's why we're going to de-escalate it right
You
now.
got to de-escalate. You got to get these guys with these guns pointed on them.
I've got to
Get them back off.
We're pushing right now. I'll start
Get the
pushing
gun.
them.
Get the guns off of us.
Hey,
Get the guns off of us.
guys, already. Come here.
This is a worldwide story. This is going on television in China.
I know. No gun pointing. No guns.
Get the guns off. No guns on American
Give me
citizens.
aim and Bundy.
Put your guns away!
Give me aim
The sheriff told him to stand down. So please.
I'm currently in negotiations with your family, all right, to find a peaceful resolution to this. Don't escalate it down here. Allow me time to talk upstairs with Metro, all right? Push these people back up off the gate. Push them back up off the gate. We're going to work to release these cattle. Listen to me. I'm going to work with you.
No.
I'm going to work with you. and I need you to back
I
up.
understand that what you're doing, and you will get that time.
Okay.
But we're not playing here.
I know, I get that. But can we push them back up off the gate for right now? Let me work with you and you. I'll allow you two to come in with me.
We're not going in there. We're
You're not
staying
getting
out
arrested.
here. No,
You got my word that no one's
I don't
taking you in
care. We're not
custody.
going
If
in
you
there.
want to stay there, that's great. They're getting your dad up
Just go
top.
do your thing.
No, they're getting your dad
And
up top.
we'll make sure that
If
we're
you
here
guys
as a
need some
presence.
help. If you
Say it. Because the way you
Maybe
guys
I
are
might
trying to say
be able to just
go back a little bit farther. Everybody's what are they saying?
The underpass right there that gives us plenty of space, 30 minutes to work. I just got to push them back.
Come on,
Whoever's in
push
charge.
them back.
But I can't disengage all these people if those people are that close. You get that. So I got to push them back so it's safety, it's peaceful.
Do my lethal. I want you guys to be ready for second wave, okay? When I call in second wave, come in. Okay.
You want me to switch out with my rifle?
Yeah, switch out with the rifle.
Romo's going to set the forces. Percussion, because the percussion. Are you fucking people stupid or what? Just let them do this, you know? Just. Fat dude, right behind the tree. He's got a long gun. Motherfucker, you come find me and you don't have hell to pay. Interesting tactic. If it works, he's a genius. If not, we're gonna. That slid down. Pretty much a shoot right there. Yeah, I like to go. Do you? Sorry. Got it. There's no gun there. No gun. No gun. He's just holding his back. He's standing like a sissy.
He must not be married.
Shoot his fucking dog first.
All they need is one of them to fire. You know it's gonna fucking light. We gotta have fucking fire discipline.
I'm recording, by the way, guys. So.
Yeah, I love it, code 4.
They're not actively assaulting us yet. With Mark McEwen.
Okay.
And we're getting the final approval for you guys to come in here or with some organization, and we'll go up, we'll get the cattle, and we'll drive them out.
Okay.
So
we're going to be here.
I know. I'm good. I don't have a problem with that.
I appreciate you.
No, don't worry.
Seriously. Thank you.
So I just wanted to come down here and at least let you know, hey, we're working on it.
Would you stay here?
Yeah, of course.
Please stay here.
Yeah, we'll stay here. So Ryan's going to come down with Mark, and then Ryan will explain everything to you again, and then what we need to do is develop a plan and we'll execute. You good? All right. All right.
All right. Hey, listen up. Good enough. Back it up. Yeah, good. We're gonna have if you just back down the road a little bit. Back it up. Back up. Nice and orderly. Okay.
You need to ask for permission. Ask permission. I'm asking you. Yep. I think we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good.
Stand 3 direct to the enemy.
And then, you know,
behind us.
and just hang out. Get back so we can't throw shit at you. And then, you know, I don't think anybody will shoot at you or anything. So, you good with that? Yep. Okay. Good with that? Okay.
Hey! They promised to leave and release the cattle in 30 minutes. But they want us to get back farther so they can disengage. So let's give them that chance.
Our units have backed up. Just give them some space in hopes that they'll disperse.
$103, 102. No. All right, about 20 minutes. Let's see if we can get those guys out of here in the next 20 minutes. What? 103, 102. Go. All right, do you know why they're not rolling yet? They ain't got an idea? I gave him the 20 minutes 15 ago, and he went down your direction, so he's down there somewhere. All right, I told Sal that we were bringing the Cowboys up at 2 o'clock. All right, I'm going to go try to find Dan real quick then. It's going to take them 30 minutes to get all these vehicles rolling, so they got to start rolling now.
Here they go, BON.
Don't yell profanity.
West Police Escort.
Don't yell profanity.
And probably some contractors.
Say goodbye.
You're not law enforcement?
Bundy said talks with Sheriff Gillespie fell short, and that it was Bundy's team of supporters who rounded up the cattle to take back to his property. The state disagreed, saying they negotiated a deal to give back the herd.
I'm not the hero. Those citizens that went up there and did the work and suffered whatever suffering they've been through, they're the heroes of America, not Clive and Bundy.
Clark County Sheriff, as Lauren Rosella mentioned, Doug Gillespie, played a key role in brokering the deal between the Bundy family and the BLM. In fact, he's been working on this behind the scenes for years now. Before protesters stormed the freeway, Gillespie worked to publicly negotiate with the Bundy family in front of his supporters. This morning, he told them as he addressed Bundy that the two would work together to find a solution. And Governor Brian Sandoval weighed in on all of this by issuing a statement. It reads in part, given the circumstances, today's outcome is the best we could have hoped for. I appreciate that the BLM was willing to listen to the concerns of the people of Nevada.
Nevada State claims to have brokered the deal with the BLM to have the cattle safely released. However, peaceful protesters, patriots, and veterans remain in prison falsely charged with crimes including assault, extortion. People, are you paying attention? None of these protesters, none of these Minutemen, and you saw the victory shot there, none of them should be in prison. None of them should be in jail. The Bureau of Land Management was totally out of control, and if things had gone a little sideways, could have killed many innocent people, and it would have been the BLM killing Americans. I hope you're paying attention. I hope you're paying attention. There's an address you could write to and send Ryan Bundy, who's carrying a bullet since the Oregon standoff, where all those Bundys and the people were all found not guilty by a jury. That was a year ago, more than a year ago. Bundys have been kept in jail all this time, and they've deliberately dragged out till the end. They tried to get other people. Here's where you can write. Write to Ryan C. Bundy, prisoner number 79400-065, 2190 East Mesquite Avenue, Pahrump, Nevada 89060. His brother Ammon Bundy, prisoner number 79404-065, 2190 East Mesquite Avenue, Pahrump, Nevada 8906. If you have any sympathies for the ranchers, the cowboys, write these guys a letter and say you saw them through these videos that came off of the internet on live television here in Santa Maria, California, or Santa Barbara, or Lompoc, whichever venue you saw it in, and let them know you care. Let them know you believe they had a right not to surrender their grazing rights to the Bureau of Land Management and that crooked Senator, U.S. Senator Harry Reid, who's working hand in hand with the Communist Corporation and his son, who's alleged to have been the people's elected governor, Rory Reid of Nevada. Where's Sheriff Mack when you need him? I wish we had Sheriff Mack around. Well, with that said, I think you're getting a grasp now of how bad things have gone. And I want to tell you, this book, written by Philip F. Nelson, is pretty good. It isn't perfect. He doesn't specifically name the Rothschild bank gangsters. He doesn't specifically name Ambassador, but I would recommend this book because it tells you how LBJ was in on the murder of JFK, and that was hidden from us. I was alive, and I was 18 when this happened. And I'm telling you, Walter Cronkite flat out lied to us, and he's still alive. Every major media corporate head lied to us over and over, lied again and again and again. Oh, Lee Harvey Oswald did it. Lee Harvey Oswald hadn't fired a shot. They gave him a paraffin test within an hour after Kennedy had been shot and Officer Tibbets had been shot. They gave him a paraffin test, and it proved he had no flash powder on him. He had not shot anything because it takes weeks for that to wear off. He was clean. How do I know that? I was only 18. I was up in Wisconsin. I wasn't anywhere. Well, I read this reporter. She talked to Lee Harvey Oswald, and she talked to the murder investigator. Her name was Dorothy Kilgallen, and I read her personal notes with my own eyes. She knew, and Guess what? Suddenly, Dorothy Kilgallen was dead. Gone. Because she kept investigating and asking questions. She used to be on What's My Line or one of those TV shows. Just search Dorothy Kilgallen. Nice looking young lady in her unmarried. Suddenly a new love life shows up while she's doing this investigation, and suddenly she's dead. And nobody really seemed to want to investigate why. LBJ was present, that's why. And he had conspired to get at least 8 people murdered. And it's documented before he cooperated with the killing. Now, about a decade ago, I had a young gal named Penny Little here in the studio. There's Dorothy Kilgallen. Let's get a shot of Dorothy there. A wonderful, tough reporter. She didn't just show up on this quiz show back in the day. She was a tough reporter. Dorothy Kilgallen, we remember you tonight. You've been long dead, but you were a good journalist. You were on the track to exposing what it took Philip Nelson 50 years to find out and bring to. But you had it all way back in 1993. JFK was murdered with sharpshooters, not using the rifle, the ancient Italian rifle that wasn't very accurate that they claim Lee Harvey Oswald used. Oswald was a CIA agent, okay? He thought the CIA had placed him in there to do some great, wonderful work. It wasn't until the last minute it dawned on Lee Harvey he was set up by his own agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, set him up because they thought he had defected when they sent him to Russia. And he came back with this beautiful Russian wife. He spoke fluent Russian, fluently, so well. He spoke his Russian so well. His Russian wife thought he was Russian when she first met him. We have been lied to. We, the people, have been lied to by LBJ, Nixon, Jimmy Carter, his brother Billy Carter, believe it or not, George W. Bush, his daddy Bush, Obama. We have been lied to continually for 50 years. The CIA is running America. They decide, and they aren't really in charge either. They just get paychecks from your taxes. They really work for the international bankers. The CIA is really the international bankers' spy ring. And when something doesn't go right, they die. Dorothy Kilgallen was on the track. If she hadn't died mysteriously, just like Justice Antoine Scalia died mysteriously in the border of Texas and Mexico, at a place I don't think he had ever gone before, and suddenly decides to go there and die, and is found holding a pillow over his own head. I hope you're paying attention. I hope you get Nelson's book, although it isn't perfect because he doesn't come out. He refers to the bank gangsters as powerful financial interests or some vague term, but I tell you exactly who they are. And that Ambassador Clark, we should dig him up and hang him, along with LBJ. They should dig up their corpses and hang the skeletons, because they were all part of what did Ambassador, I'm not talking about the Libertarian Party candidate in 1980, Ed Clark. I'm talking about Ambassador Edward Clark, a member of the Texas Bar Association. There's another good shot of Dorothy Kilgallen. A bright, cheerful, extremely intelligent, and very determined journalist. She knew when they said that Lee Harvey Oswald had killed Tibbets and killed Kennedy. She knew that was a lie, and she kept digging. She actually made a phone call. I saw it in her notes. She gave the date, the time. She called Walter Cronkite to tell him, and it wasn't long after that Dorothy was dead. For that reason, I want you to go hear Penny Little here. We're going to flash back a decade, so I'm going to appear a lot younger. But here's Penny with her investigation on 9/11. We haven't been told the truth about this either. 9/11 was set up to bring in the Patriot Act, so the Patriot Act could be used against ranchers like Bundy. That's my point. We need to repeal it. Here's Penny.
Ground Zero, the people who live near there, the people who went to get New York back up and running, because they're the ones that are deeply affected, but this is a national issue. This is not just about New York. This is how you might get treated after the fact of if there's ever another attack of any sort. And so the response that happened here, we need to learn from it, just like we needed to learn from Katrina what happened and how the government treated people so callously. And I think the thing that this film was just so hard to make because I lived with these people. I actually stayed with Rachel Hughes for about a month and watched her on a daily basis. And these people are sick. People may be telling you, oh no, they're not sick, they're just complaining about post-traumatic stress disorder, which is no small thing either. But there are a lot of people out there sick, probably tens of thousands of people who are sick and dying because of the lies, the misrepresentations, and basically the criminal behavior of this administration.
Well, thank you, Penny, for those comments. We're going to go right now and let you see and hear Willie Rodriguez, the last hero alive out of the tower, who saved many people. Be back when he's done speaking.
Also the basement, 8:45 towards 8:46, I hear an explosion. At that moment, I thought it was an electrical generator that blew up on the basement. At that very moment, when I was going to verbalize that, I thought it was a generator. I hear an impact at the top. When that happened, a person, seconds after, comes running into the office saying explosion, explosion, explosion. It was Felipe David, who his skin was pulled from under his armpits all the way to the top of the fingertips, and he was missing parts of his face. And I said, what happened? And he said, the elevators, the elevators. I said, don't move. I'm going to call the EMS that were located on the other building. And when I went to pick up the phone, another explosion. It was huge. The building shook from side to side so hard that the walls cracked, the false ceiling fell down, the sprinkler system got activated, and I said, everybody out, everybody out. I started pushing everybody outside towards the loading dock. From the loading dock, we went all the way to the exit of the building. And once we're outside, an ambulance was coming. When that ambulance stopped, I put Felipe David in there that was burned, and that's when I turn around and I hear a plane hit the building. When I turn around, I look up, I saw the building that was on fire, and I couldn't believe it. I said, what's going on? A plane? That doesn't make any sense. And at that moment, I remember that the people of Windows of the World. I started screaming, we gotta go back because of the people of Windows. And all of a sudden, the same people that I took out started screaming, Rodriguez, you're not going back in, you stay here. I said, no, I'm going. I picked up the radio from the security guard, and I went back running in. And maybe within a minute, I was inside, minute and a half. And from there, I go to building 2. When I go to building 2, I found 2 people, Jimmy Barrett and a lady from the security department that was actually signing the people in for the Marriott Hotel. And she didn't even know what was happening. She heard the explosion, but she didn't know what to do. She was a new employee. I said, you gotta get out. Pushed them both out, and I went to the OCC, the Office of Control Center. I started hitting the window. There was nobody there. I ran back to building 1. When I get to building 1, I find a guy from recycling company screaming, I hear screams. There was no people around. So I put my ear in one of the elevators, and I heard 2 people stuck on the elevator on the basement. And they were saying that they were going to drown, and I don't understand why. And apparently all the sprinkler system from all the floors, the water went down the shaft. So I look around, I found a pipe, I put it against the doors, I broke the mechanism, the door opened up, and then when I look up, they were too deep. So I started saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I looked around, I found a ladder in the area of the recycling, the garbage compactor. I pick up that ladder, drop it inside the elevator shaft, went in, opened the crate, got them both out. They were stuck between B2 and B3. Got them both out, and I put them on the side, and I said, we gotta get out. Took them outside the building, put them in an ambulance, and start running again into the building. That's when I found Police Officer David Lim from the Port Authority Police. And there, that it has gone already like 12 minutes, 15 minutes around that time. And then I went up to the lobby and I told the fire department to follow me. And they followed me floor by floor as I opened the doors. We got to the 27th floor. When we get there, we hear explosions and continue going up, opening doors by myself because the fire department collapsed on the floor. Until I get to the 33rd floor by myself, and I found a lady and stood her up, put her on the stairwell. I heard strange noise on the 34th floor, and continue again running up to the 39th floor. On the 39th floor, we hear an explosion, and it was building 2. And inside our building, everything started to collapse. Pa, 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 pa. And we hear on the radio, we lost 65, meaning the 65th floor collapsed floor by floor inside the building. And I went into a frenzy. We gotta go up, we gotta go up. And they told me, no, you gotta get out. And I didn't want to get out, so I continued going up. Screaming that I had to go up. And the police officer told me, but if you give me a chance, a hand with the person on the wheelchair that is on the 27th floor. And I said, well, I will go down and I will take him out and I'm going to come back. So I went down. I told the fire department I have orders to get this guy out. Put him on. He was already on a rescue basket. We started going down the stairwell, and you could hear the destruction. And we didn't know what was happening. And when I got to the lobby and I look up, building 2 already collapsed. I didn't know what it was. I saw debris everywhere, and that's when one of the firemen tells me, get the ambulance ready. I went towards the front of the door, and I was screaming not to look back, not to look around. I looked, I saw the bodies, and all of a sudden everything shaking. Everything shaking, and everybody's screaming, run, run, run. So the only thing I saw was a fire truck. I slid right on there, and the building collapsed right on top. Boom, boom, boom. And all I remember saying at that moment was, God, please don't let my mother see my body in parts. Let her recognize my body, because I knew I was going to die.
Well, people, but I think that man was a hero. The red, white, and blue flag you see behind Penny has the names of the 9/11 heroes, or what I like to call them, the victims of the Bush crime syndicate. These are people who didn't need to die. Over here, to my right, just out of view of your camera, is another flag that lists the firefighters and the police officers. These people died on that day. And if you zoom in slowly on that, you'll see lots of names written on the red, because these people shed their blood on 9/11. They didn't want to die that day. I think it was 300 firefighters and policemen died that day. Isn't it, Penny? About 350?
Yeah, that's about the number.
But since that day, we've had firefighters die that weren't there on 9/11. And one of the phenomena that is taking place, and I wish I had the funding to go interview them, is firefighters from around the country went there. And some of them stayed for weeks, some for almost a month. They now also are getting sick. And nobody's telling you about it. Nor is FEMA, and I think New York City itself under Mayor Giuliani, they'd have to take some blame because they covered up the truth too, didn't they, Penny?
There was absolutely a media blackout. The New York Daily News, Juan Gonzalez started to cover the story, and one of the deputy mayors from Giuliani's office called over there and said, hey, you got to stop this story. And they broke up the investigative team, and pretty much that was the end of the reporting for a while. And one of the reasons I did this film was because it seemed like no one was telling these people's stories. And these people do not deserve to be swept under the rug.
Like the people at Katrina.
Exactly.
Which were just swept away. I think that says something about the Bush administration. If we had not been in this undeclared, unconstitutional war, which is something all you conservatives should care about, the Constitution, which Bush says is just a damn piece of paper, unquote. If not for this illegal tragic war that has now lasted longer than World War II. There would have been the Louisiana National Guard helicopters available to airlift those people out. No, they were over in the Middle East killing people that don't know why we're killing them, that don't know why we're invading their country. I know Penny doesn't want me to bring up this issue, but her film deals with simply the fact that we're not caring for the sick people. And that alone should be enough to tell you whether you're liberal left or far right wing or middle of the road, or you just sort of don't care. Can't America take care of its own sick and dying? When they went to help, when volunteers who are not on the fire department payroll, not on the police department payroll, not on FEMA's payroll, they volunteered because they had EMT experience, or they were nurses, or they had something to do to help the people. And our government is doing nothing. Not only nothing, as Penny just pointed out, they don't want you to know they're doing nothing. Wow. I think this issue alone should be enough to bring the far left and the far right together, and the middle road Christians say, wait a minute, we got to stop this war. Number one, it's predicated that Congress declared it, which they didn't. Bush declared it, which is contrary to our Constitution. Number two, Bush did it based on a lie. Not that the Democrats are all squeaky clean and innocent, because they voted money for it, didn't they, Penny?
Absolutely.
And they're still voting money for it. And they're wringing their hands and saying, gee, I didn't see Loose Change, and I didn't see Wagner's show, and so I don't know these things, and so I just can't let our troops stay there without funding. So we'll just have to keep on funding the war. But right here in New York City, actually we're in Santa Maria, but in New York City, which is, for a lot of people, the America, not my America, but it's for a lot of people, what, 10 million?
Big city.
Big city. You know, this is the quintessential America. Go there, make it, become rich, whatever. Thousands of people are dying, and probably tens of thousands more, right?
Right.
Thousands of people are dying. And it's a distraction. People die every day. All of us are going to die someday. This Bundy thing that's going to start, I'm wondering what the media is going to use to keep you distracted. First of all, no corporate media will cover it fairly, if at all. That's why I gave you this information, and that's why you become the frontline soldiers and just getting the truth out. Just, this stuff all happened. All those clips you saw in the Interstate 15 by Bunkerville, Nevada, that all happened in April of 2014. Here it's 3 years later. The Bundys were happily going on with their lives. They were unmolested by the Obama administration until Amin and some friends went up to try to rescue from prison by calling together legitimate grand juries of the people. I think that's what they're trying to do, and I haven't got him on in the studio here to ask him because he's sitting in a private prison in Pahrump, Nevada. But then all hell breaks loose. Then they arrest him, and once they got him in custody up there, and that jury finds him not guilty of doing anything wrong to the federal property, people forget he went up there to try to bring attention. The Hammonds, father and son, have been sitting in a prison because the federal government wants to steal their land, and the Hammonds said, we don't want to sell our ranch. We like our lifestyle. We like our way of making a living. Leave us alone. But the federal thugs from the BLM and some crooked county judge in Harney County, Oregon, won't leave them alone. Because of the heavy hand, the heavy hand of the federal government, Harney County has gone from being one of the most prosperous counties in Oregon to being one of the most poverty-stricken ones. That's all I can tell you about that. I hope you get Philip Nelson's book, LBJ, the mastermind of the JFK assassination, although he had lots of help from J. Edgar Hoover, George Herbert Walker Bush, the Ambassador Edward Clark, and Clinton Murchison, and a whole slew, including Richard Nixon. And what people don't connect, and mostly most of you aren't old enough to remember, the guy who ran the strip club used to work as a congressional aide for Richard Nixon when he was a congressman. Nixon knew about it. They had a big party the night or two before. They all got together and LBJ bragged about it's all going to be different after the 22nd, and it was. All of this has been corroborated. This is not something I just pulled out of the air. But if you don't search for it, you won't ever know the truth. My point again being, the truth is covered up for 50 years. And now President Bush and Obama want their presidential records to be hidden for 100 years. Why is that? I just saw a guy on C-SPAN the other day saying, why do they need to have their records locked down for nobody, no historians to research for 100 years? That's ridiculous. 10 or 20 years is okay. There may be some secrets that you don't want our enemies to know. But after 20 years, the players worldwide have all changed. Russia used to be our worst enemy. Now she's almost like a business partner. China, we're one of China's biggest export countries, you know. They don't want to bomb us. Communist China just wants to buy us up with the Federal Reserve notes, those crooked bankers that own the private bank known as the Federal Reserve. They got 50 trillion of them. And now they're coming to America to buy America up. They don't need to bomb us. They just got to buy us up. I'm hoping Trump will come back with a gold-backed currency and wipe out the Federal Reserve completely and put them in prison where they belong. Because they've run the largest Ponzi scheme in the world has ever seen. Anyway, let's go to that official Bundy thing. I just want to say one last thing. Lee Harvey Oswald had nothing to do with killing Kennedy. Nothing. The Bundys broke no laws. It was the BLM breaking the laws, and your corporate media doesn't want you to understand that. That's why there's no news about it. Because if they honestly covered it, you'd say, what the heck? Right, our congressman have that prostitute known as Judge Gloria Navarro indicted and removed from office. She should be impeached. She was put there specifically to get the Bundys. It was a deal. When you can get a federal judgeship just so you can destroy a 4-generation ranching family in Nevada or any part of America, something is wrong, people. But if you, the people, don't know it, so thanks for watching. Listen to the Bundy's official story. I'm William Wagner. September 17th. Thanks for tuning in.
Or should we have just let federal agencies take our heritage? Ask yourself, what would have you done? Ask yourself what is right. Let me explain our story. My brothers and I grew up on a family cattle ranch in southern Nevada, established by our great-great-grandfathers in 1877. We were raised in humble circumstances in the same little ranch home as our father, Cliven Bundy, built by my grandfather Dave in the 1940s. For 5 generations, our family has run cattle along the Bunkerville Mountains. Our ancestors were the first pioneers to settle in the southern Nevada desert. They carved their living out of leveling and farming land next to the Virgin River and ran cattle on the hills. Their homesteads were established before Las Vegas had even one person living in it. Nevada had only been a state for 13 years. Discovering multiple springs on the foothills of the mountains, our forefathers began to build water troughs and holding tanks to supply water for cattle. This made it so the cattle did not have to travel too far for water. In the arid desert where a ranch is, it takes approximately 100 acres to feed one cow. In his lifetime, my father has improved upon this watering system by installing pipes throughout the lower hills from 11 different water sources over a 30-mile span. This has allowed the cattle to benefit from feed in areas where otherwise they could not live because they would have to walk too far for water. This has also greatly benefited the desert wildlife and made hunting and camping plentiful. As a true environmentalist, my father, by expanding the water system and caring for the land and the road, has tremendously promoted wildlife, increased game, improved camping, and generally made the area more enjoyable to be on. Even the desert tortoise would thank Clive and Bundy for the water close by if they could speak. All of this is done at my father's expense and effort, costing the taxpayers nothing. With his banged-up Dodge pickup, my father would spend many days a month blowing out the water lines with air and repairing the leaks, making sure each water tank was always full. My family has brought life to the southern Nevada desert for over 100 years. Imagine what would happen to all the wildlife if this watering system was not maintained or if it was destroyed. Before I move on, it is important that you have a little more background about the legality of our water and grazing rights. In 1890, the state of Nevada created a registry so that ranchers and others could deed their water and grazing rights. In Nevada, as with other western states, the livestock water rights include title to graze. Each deed in print designates how many cattle the owner of the deed is typically grazing around the water. This is the way grazing rights are recorded and protected by the state of Nevada. Just to be clear, these livestock grazing and water rights are vested property, much like mineral rights or deeded rights to your home. These grazing rights are real property. They can be sold, traded, borrowed against, or adversely taken. They are the lifeblood of our ranch and are a valued heritage to our family. Many people have desired to purchase them over the years, but my father has chosen to remain raising cattle in the desert. Without these stock water grazing rights, our ranch has almost no value. My father owns 11 of these stock water grazing rights, deeded with the state of Nevada. In the early 1990s, the Bureau of Land Management, also known as the BLM, an agency of the executive branch, tried to trespass my father for grazing cattle on our deeded range, where my family has run cattle for 138 years. The BLM adopted an extreme environmental no cattle policy designed to remove all ranching from the land. On the wall in the Southern Nevada BLM district office, they displayed their motto. It read, "No moo by 92, cattle free by 93. Seeing their intent to destroy his ranch, my father stood on the fact that his ranch was inside the boundaries of the state of Nevada, that the federal agencies are violating the constituted laws between the state and the federal government, and that he owns a deeded right to graze and water his cattle, established over a century ago. When agents from the Bureau of Land Management told my father that the federal government does not recognize his grazing rights and that my father must remove his cattle, he told them that they had no authority to take his family's heritage away. When they said they were going to take it away anyway, he said no, and then he said hell no. Several times the Bureau of Land Management tried to drag my father into federal court so they could strip him of his rights, like they have done with thousands of others. Being land inside the state of Nevada, not ceded to the federal government, my father held the constitutional position that federal agencies have no legal constituted authority to administer the land inside the state, and therefore no jurisdiction to trespass or prosecute him. Watching other ranchers, miners, loggers try to defend themselves in federal court when the federal government was the plaintiff, my father often said, going into federal court to defend yourself against federal agencies is like as if a man broke into your home and beat up your wife and children. So to get justice, you take him to court. When they say all arise to the honorable judge, in walks a man in a black robe, and he is the very man that assaulted your wife and children. Of over 100,000 cases in the western states where the federal government is the plaintiff in federal court, federal judges have sided with federal agencies every single time, taking century-old vested property rights away from good, hard-working families. In our area, my dad is the last rancher out of 53. In the state of Nevada alone, federal agencies have taken 5,072 water rights from the people and deeded them to themselves. It is astonishing to think about this when the United States Constitution was specifically designed to prohibit this very thing from happening. We, the people, have ignorantly allowed federal agencies of the executive branch to be modern-day conquerors, gobbling up our land and resources and inserting themselves into every facet of our lives. Our homes, our schools, our churches, our jobs, our industries, our manufacturing industries, our housing industries, our agricultural industries, our mineral industries, our financial industries. Everywhere there is wealth, they seek to control and take. They will not stop expanding and growing on their own. They will not limit themselves because they do not produce a product. In order for them to survive and gain and grow, they must take from the people who produce a product. The judicial branch of government, the courts and the judges, have not been an effective check and balance to these agencies for over 60 years, giving them a free pass to prey upon the wealth of the American people. U.S. Congress has tried to stop them twice in the last decade by defunding them. We saw through this that the executive agencies are too powerful for even the United States Congress to limit. So how did people come to know about the Bundy family, my family? Well, in April 2014, the BLM joined forces with 4 other federal agencies to enforce their unlawful trespass and destroy our ranch. They set up a massive military-like compound on the range. With 200 hired guns, mercenaries, they surrounded our ranch and put it under siege. They began to brutally round up our cattle with helicopters, running them to death, shooting them from the air, and leaving the newborn calves out on the range to thirst to death or to be eaten by coyotes. The dead cattle were dumped into mass graves dug by federal backhoes. They also began destroying the water infrastructure that had been established over 100 years ago. Our family was threatened by BLM personnel that said, if we resisted in any way, this would be another Waco or Ruby Ridge. Knowing beforehand the abuses that they were about to cause would bring public outcry, the BLM built 2 First Amendment areas in non-conspicuous places and threatened the public with arrest and federal charges if anyone protests outside these areas. Our family, friends, and other local people